Well, rumors started swirling overnight that President-elect Donald Trump was about to declare a national emergency declaration upon entering the White House, declaring a national emergency at our southern border, bringing the United States military in to stop it. Well, yes, now it is official. And we have this confirmation right from President-elect Trump's own mouth. True, in response to Tom Fitton, who said, "Good news, reports are incoming. The incoming president administration prepared to declare a national emergency will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program." Philip, you were saying, man, Reddit has just been exploding with all of that. Are the liberal folks over on Reddit excited about this, or are they thinking that overstepping his boundaries?
No, like it's the end of the world.
It's the end of the world.
The big thing that's being brought up is the denaturalization along with it. So they're basically what the overall thing on Reddit is, if I was going to sum it up, is that Trump is going to take anybody that they don't like, denaturalize them, then deport them somewhere.
Okay. So if you're a citizen, in other words, if you're a citizen, he's going to kick you out of the country. Mm-hmm. So yeah, okay. That makes zero sense.
And are these the same people, I'm just curious, who thought that COVID was a national emergency and they were totally fine with that?
They were totally fine with lockdowns.
But increased crime and 300,000 children being lost at the southern border by traffickers is not an emergency. That's cool. That's totally cool.
That's totally cool, apparently. I mean, okay. I don't want...
And 98% of known criminals that are crossing the border right now that are currently in the United States, that ICE has admitted that they've only arrested 2% of known criminals, migrants. That's not an emergency. 600,000 criminals, known criminals, for murder, rape, car burglary, house burglary. All that's cool. That's not an emergency.
Exactly.
Okay. It's cool. I mean, if you don't think that's an emergency, that's why you voted for Kamala Harris. Let me just give you a thumbs up on that one.
So don't let Philip speak for all of Reddit. He likes to lurk on Reddit, and you know, he often provides some amazing responses to the people of Reddit. So he's not our official spokesperson for Reddit, by the way.
No, that's what the algorithm on Reddit served him. Yes. And he is letting us know because we want to know why people would not want this. Why wouldn't they want this? You know, trucks of migrants being trucked in, a lot of times they die and freeze, and we don't want a national emergency at the border to stop people from dying and being kidnapped and raped. I'm so curious why that's not an emergency to you, white people.
Yeah. So Caitlin Collins posted this from CNN. Of course, she's one of their lackeys over at CNN. She says, Trump confirms he is prepared to declare a national state of emergency and use military assets to carry out his mass deportation pledge. Military assets. So liberals, of course, are melting down over this. Here's the liberal response. Total overreach of executive power, but MAGA doesn't care about the Constitution, she says. So not sure if these liberals are aware, of course. So she says total overreach of executive power. Okay, just to be clear about this, all you need to do is go to whitehouse.gov and you can read on the executive branch exactly right here. The power of the executive branch is vested in the President of the United States, who also acts as head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And beyond that, the U.S. law generally forbids the president from deploying military forces within the United States unless there is an invasion or a rebellion. And we have to go back to 1807 when the Insurrection Act was passed. It's a federal law that gives the president the authority to deploy military forces, including federal troops or the National Guard, to address situations of insurrection, rebellion, or widespread lawlessness in the United States. Would you say we have widespread lawlessness? Would you say that we have an invasion? I would. So he may use the Insurrection Act with his national emergency declaration, basically. But beyond that, there's a long-standing precedent for this. The United States has a long history of using its military to secure the border. And spoiler alert, this isn't some new thing that's cooked up in the last 5 years by Republicans. No, this has been going on for nearly 200 years in the United States. And you can let your liberal friends know about that. In fact, for instance, back in the 1840s, the border as we know it today didn't even exist. The Mexican-American War happened, and we ended up with a huge chunk of what is now the southwestern United States of America. And after that, the Army was sent in. Why? Well, to keep things under control. That's why. And stop raids, protect settlers in that region, make it clear that this land belongs to the United States. This wasn't just about geography. It was about the security, just like today. Then fast forward to the early 1900s. Okay, this is probably more relevant than even what happened in the 1800s. The Mexican Revolution was raging. Just across the border, it was chaos. Towns in Texas, New Mexico were getting caught in the crossfire. Sound familiar? So what did we do? We sent in the United States military. Yes, General Pershing sent in to secure the border. U.S. southern border in the early 1900s. In fact, General Pershing even led troops into Mexico, chasing Pancho Villa. Yes, we crossed the border. Why? Because things were spilling over into our country, and you deal with it when that happens. So March 1911, during William Howard Taft's presidency in the United States, they rolled out barbed wire for the first time, and it was actually the first official use of the term wall. Everyone wants to slam Trump for saying the wall, build a wall. William Howard Taft was doing that back in 1911, rolling out huge spools of barbed wire to keep out invaders in the United States. In fact, the United States at that time under Taft sent 20,000 soldiers to the United States southern border to secure it. But this is a new thing. This is suddenly new. It's unprecedented. Total control of our Constitution. Okay, just so you understand, 20,000 troops at the U.S. southern border. We right now have 58,000 troops in the Middle East. 58,000 who are sitting there as cannon fodder. And if we enter this war, broader war in the Middle East, they will be killed. But you're concerned about the use of military assets in the United States to protect our own borders? It's rich, really. That's a rich statement to take.
Well, but what's the alternative, though? Do nothing? Let people keep getting hurt? That's the thing about people who are so upset about Kamala Harris losing, is that her solution to the current problem where children are being raped and traded is no solution at all, is keep it as is and pass a bill through Congress to continue to use the money that President Trump had earmarked for that border. There's no other solution. So those people will continue to be hurt. Do I have empathy for families with mixed migration status? Absolutely. And Donald Trump has said that he will try not to deport whole families. We don't know how this is going to work out, but how can we sit here and say, no, we got to keep it as it is? How? They have no alternative solution. Present me one, and then we'll consider it. But to my mind, with this suffering, with a Department of Homeland Security report that says we've lost 300,000 children, we know we've visited some of them, and some of these, like the one woman who said, in my house, my husband's raping this girl. And they said, okay, but we know where she is now. Bye. They left her there. That's what our current laws allow. How can we say that this is okay? How can you cast your, I don't know how you can cast your vote for Kamala Harris knowing that that was what her administration did. She left a child in a rapist home. Even one.
Oh,
one.
It'll get worse in a second here when I show you something else. But just even some more context here in the 1980s. So we're talking about early 1900s. Well, we can just go back to the 1980s. It's not ancient history. Ronald Reagan sent troops to the U.S. southern border because of what was happening. Ronald Reagan. In the 1980s, the military was brought in again, not with tanks and troops marching down Main Street, but to help fight the drug war. So Reagan, a man who understood the concept of national security, said, quote, hey, this isn't a policy issue or policing issue. This is about protecting the country. It's not about like supplanting what the police are doing. No, this is about protecting an invasion of drugs into the United States. Imagine, now it's way worse. If you take what Reagan was fighting in the drug trade, coming in Jamaican drugs pouring in from Jamaica, coming up through Central America, it was a disaster. This is way worse what we're seeing with fentanyl now in the United States. And he said this about our border. But the simple truth is that we've lost control of our own borders, and no nation can do that and survive. By the way, side note, we now know, according to testimony this morning, in the Laken Riley murder trial, the illegal immigrant who killed her was flown to Georgia by the Biden-Harris regime on their dime. In New York City, flown to Georgia. You, taxpayers, paid for their flight so they could resettle wherever they wanted in the United States. And they chose Georgia, and they chose to kill somebody. Yes, the roommate of Jose Ibarra, the man charged with Laken Riley's murder, testified this morning that they both received a taxpayer-funded flight to Georgia. In other words, the Biden-Harris administration paid for Jose Ibarra to fly to Georgia, where he killed Laken Riley. Here is that testimony, and I'll kind of talk over some of the Spanish back and forth. But watch, this is the bombshell moment.
Someone else that you got to know, that you lived with while you were here in Athens?
¿Alguien más que llegaste a conocer, que vivió con ustedes aquí en Athens?
Giancarlo Hernández.
Giancarlos Hernández.
Okay. And how did you get to Athens?
¿Y cómo llegaron a Athens?
En Nueva York pedimos en Manhattan.
In New York, we asked in Manhattan.
En el Hotel Roosevelt.
And Hotel Roosevelt.
So they were at the Hotel Roosevelt. So they were being put up.
Pedimos un vuelo humanitario aquí hasta Atlanta.
In Manhattan, we requested for a humanitarian flight to come here to Atlanta.
So in New York City, they're at the Hotel Roosevelt.
¿Cuándo fue eso?
I want to fly out of here. I want to be put up in Georgia. Like, where do you want to go? Go right downtown here in New York City. I'm at the Hotel Roosevelt, have all my meals and everything paid for by U.S. taxpayers. And then I want to, I'd like to resettle. Georgia seems nice. That's where I can go, and I'll go and kill Laken Riley. That happened under the Biden-Harris regime. So liberals can cry all the tears they want today, but this national declaration, this national emergency declaration is coming. And I can't wait for it to happen. I hope that there are liberal tears all over the United States for what's about to happen to secure our border. I'm excited about it.
Okay. I mean, again, the ICE document that was released just before the election showed at least 20,000 rapists and had put in their own document that they knew of them and that they had arrested less than 2% of them. So this is something that the Biden-Harris administration has ordained by decriminalizing most behaviors on behalf of not just migrants, but all of us, right? And so this is something that you have to ignore if you're going to get upset about mass deportations. So, okay.
If you suffer from daily pain, I need you to listen to this message very carefully. What we know about pain relief is changing forever. As we age, aches and pains are normal, and we're all searching for effective ways to relieve pain without side effects and addiction. Let's be frank, we've all seen the horrors of the opioid crisis. You may even be affected personally. Your family might know someone that has been affected by this. That's where a pioneering medical scientist comes in, Clint Winters. You may have seen the world-renowned health expert featured in the national media. He's unveiled a natural pain reliever that has taken the world by storm. And I'm talking about Canoladine, the 100% drug-free way to get full-body pain relief without dangerous pills. As you read this right now, Canoladine has become the go-to pain reliever for over 1 million Americans, hundreds of professional athletes. It was even named as the UFC's #1 official pain reliever for the UFC. Right now, you guys can try it. Go to trycano.com/redacted, and you're going to get it for less than $1 per day. You can access the only Canoladine product in the world for less than $1 per day. Clint has provided this special link for you guys. You can guys get this special discount. Just go to trycano.com/redacted. I see a bunch of people in the chat who've already ordered this. Give it a shot. If you suffer from chronic pain, you don't want to have that addiction from drugs, try kano.com/redacted, the 100% drug-free Canoladine. Try it for less than $1 a day.
President Biden has decided that, World War III sounds good. Now, according to some unnamed sources from the New York Times, which gives me pause, right? President Biden has just pushed the United States to the brink of nuclear war by authorizing the Ukrainian military to use American long-range missiles to strike inside Russia, which would get us all killed. Now, when Biden had his wits about us, he said he would never do this because that would lead to World War III. But now that he only has a few more weeks on the job, he's like, is World War III so bad? Should we just do that? Again, according to unnamed sources. So we know, of course, President Biden doesn't know what he's up to. Who inside the Biden administration told this to the New York Times? Did they really do it? Are they hinting at something? We don't know. Well, here's what President-elect Trump said this morning, slamming Biden for escalating this war and calling for it to stop immediately.
We have never been closer to World War III than we are today under Joe Biden. A global conflict between nuclear-armed powers would mean death and destruction on a scale unmatched in human history. It would be nuclear Armageddon. Nothing is more important than avoiding that nightmare. We will avoid it, but we need new leadership. Every day this proxy battle in Ukraine continues, we risk global war. We must be absolutely clear that our objective is to immediately have a total cessation of hostilities. All shooting has to stop.
All right. Now, the Kremlin responded to that this morning. President Vladimir Putin told the BBC that the Biden administration continues to stoke tension around this conflict. And in September, Putin had said that this would pose a threat to Russia and that they would respond in kind, whether it be nuclear or otherwise, on the people that supplied Ukraine with these weapons, meaning all NATO countries, meaning us. Now, Representative Thomas Massey said this about this on X: by authorizing long-range missiles to strike inside Russia, Biden is committing an unconstitutional act of war that endangers the lives of all U.S. citizens. This is an impeachable offense, but the reality is he's an emasculated puppet of the deep state. And again, let's take a look at this New York Times article because it says, according to unnamed sources. So we don't know who that is. And of course, the New York Times is a mouthpiece of the deep state. So did they make this up? Is it someone who is penetrated inside the New York Times who wants to escalate this war? Is this even real? Ukrainian President Zelensky said on X, "We love the idea of this. Long-range weapons have been on my Christmas list for 2 years now. Santa hasn't brought them to me. But, yes, this is part of my peace plan, or my victory plan is what he calls it. Last year was a peace plan. This year it's a victory plan. I get them confused because they're both bullshit. But he said, we haven't seen it yet. And so until we actually see this in writing or see the weapons, we're not really going to believe it. But he's given a thumbs up to the idea, as he has been all along, because he wants full-scale invasion of Russia. And he wants all Ukrainians dead. I don't know why, because he's a demon, probably. So while we're on the same page here, Russia and the United States combined to possess 85% of the world's nuclear stockpile. A war between the two countries could, end humanity. The story was confirmed by the Wall Street Journal. Here it is on X. President Biden, for the first time, authorized Ukrainian forces to use Western-made long-range weapons to strike inside Russia, to which Alex Soros, the heir to the Soros throne, says, great. Well, why would he say great? Because his family obviously hates humanity and stands to make a lot of money off of war. So again, I ask you.
This is great news.
Great
news.
Yeah, I'm so excited about who will die. Maybe it's us, but what I really want is innocent Russian people to die first and foremost. I ordained this. Have you ever said great about bombing humans? Have you ever felt that was a great idea?
No, I can't think. You've lost literally almost 1 million Ukrainian men now to this war. And so that the likes of George Soros can get their hands, the likes of BlackRock and Vanguard can take over these lands, start building and making money off of the soil of these dead people. Yeah. That's what Alex Soros is championing right now. That's where all that George Soros money went, by the way, helping to make sure that Kamala Harris would win, right? All of these warmonger candidates, so that they can reap the spoils of war and the death of these nearly 1 million Ukrainian men right now. It's disgusting.
Under what circumstances, you guys, is a bomb a great news when you know that innocent people will die? Can you think of a time where you were like, yes, bombs, other than the expression, the bomb?
No, I can't think of a time.
Okay. David, Philip, anytime you loved the idea of bombing people?
I can't think of anybody, like government, country, or people in thereof that I hate enough that I want them all to die. I don't even dislike them enough to really want them to get hurt.
It's a reminder that people want peace. Governments want war, unless you're part of the Soros family.
Well, it reminds me of the Polish MP who tweeted in the day right after the Nord Stream pipeline bomb went off and destroyed the pipeline, the largest environmental catastrophe in world history. And the Polish MP was like, "Thank you, United States. Thanks, America. This is awesome. Yeah. Like, thank you."
Tell me a time other than World War II that it was actually justified. I mean, if you look at our history since World War II, I don't think we've had any justification for any bomb we've ever dropped.
Was that justified?
I don't know what you're saying there.
World War II,
I'm saying
World War II was a
bombing.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't agree with the method, but I'm saying there was an actual threat that needed to be taken care of with Germany. Other than that, no.
Let's put a pin in that because I don't want to have a tangent.
We could have a whole huge tangent
bombing.
on war. There's no, as Sting has said, there's never a justification for it. So anyway, yes.
Okay. Again, I can't figure out why the New York Times would do this, why everyone would react to unnamed sources in the New York Times. What's the angle here when the White House hasn't confirmed it? Why are we responding to this? I mean, the only person who actually seems to have had a measured response was Vladimir Putin saying, well, they're stoking tension, but we don't know because it's unconfirmed. Even Zelensky himself has said that. So who wants this? No one on Redacted wants this. So why? It's a suspiciously timed story when the Biden administration is outgoing and they are furiously trying to prevent President Trump from getting a peace deal.
Well, we have a special guest coming up on this topic. We're going to dive more deeply into it, specifically with some sources out of Moscow, right out of President Putin's own inner circle. We're going to talk with that individual coming up in just a short few minutes. But first, woman, remember last week we covered on the show how that woman sued Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and she was forced to get the vaccine, and she said she wouldn't do it, so they fired her as a result of it. Well, now she's won a multi-million-dollar lawsuit as a result, and I'm hoping that this opens up the floodgates to be able to go after these companies and the biopharmaceutical complex for this very reason. Well, Tucker Carlson responded to this woman winning this massive lawsuit and said he was excited about this. And he went on a bit of like a 3-minute rant here, which I think is amazing, specifically about an end to the vaccine liability shields that these vaccine manufacturers have in place. We've talked about this here on the show, that you can't go after these biopharmaceutical companies because the government has given them like blanket immunity shields. Tucker says it is time to end that right now. Listen.
Jury in Michigan just awarded a woman fired for not taking the vax millions of dollars. And I hope that is a nationwide trend where everyone whose life was destroyed in that fit of lies and hysteria is made whole. I really hope so. And I do hope that Congress can immediately strip the blanket immunity from the vaccine makers. I don't understand that. I've sold products my whole life. I mean, imagine you have a product, you convince politicians to force the population to buy your product. Anyone who complains gets fired, and you can't be sued. I'm sorry. And I'm not attacking vaccines, by the way. I'm sure there are fine vaccines. I don't know. I'm not taking any of them, but it's okay if other people do. I'm not mad about people taking vaccines. I'm not mad about vaccines. But that's a scam. And anyone who says it's not a scam can just explain to me how it's not a scam. How is that not a scam? You're not allowed to sue? You can sue anybody for anything in this country. Anything. That's why we don't have playgrounds anymore. Because people made remember merry-go-rounds? Remember those? Is anyone old enough to remember a merry-go-round? They don't exist. They were awesome. I have like 10 friends who have fewer teeth than they were born with because of merry-go-rounds. But they have stronger spirits because they were great. They don't exist anymore because the trial bar decided we're going to get rich suing merry-go-round makers and people who were nice enough to build playgrounds. It's like so many good things in American life have been eliminated by the greed of the trial bar. You know, by the way, next time in the Caribbean, go down to the yacht basin, wherever you are, it doesn't matter what island you are, and look at the biggest boats and just ask like the boat guys and the matching polo shirts with the yacht names on them, like, what does the owner of this boat do for a living? And just keep a list of how many of them are trial lawyers, like a lot. You know, it was the tobacco settlement or asbestos or whatever. It was talcum powder or whatever case they were. And I'm not attacking all lawyers, though I want to, because I do hate them with a passion. But even if I liked lawyers, I would say, how is it that there's this one category that's exempt from the risk that all the rest of us who are involved in any kind of business face? I have liability insurance on my house in case the UPS guy slips delivering a package from Amazon. But somehow Albert Bourla and all the other creepy billionaires who run these disgusting pharma companies are in no danger of being sued because their corrupt pals in Congress in 1986 gave them blanket immunity? Like, let's tear that down immediately. Oh, well, we can't compete. Well, why don't you just make a safer vaccine then? How's that sound? Why don't you face the same risk that every other person who conducts any other kind of commerce or lives in this country faces every single day? Oh, we can't. Oh, shut up. Go away. And so that's the first thing. I don't even know how I got off on that, but I'm so mad about it. It's so crazy.
I love it. I think it brings up in 1986 they give this blanket immunity. They can rush these things to market with no clinical trials.
Yeah.
Push it on the American people, and then you have no recourse.
Right.
Think about the amount, and it's because it's for public safety.
Yeah.
Right. It's for our safety that we have these blanket immunities.
We've covered it. In increasing volume, how many medicines or treatments or vaccines have been pushed to market with either emergency use authorization or fast tracked. Most recently, the RSV vaccine for pregnant women and elderly people, fast tracked. Why? Why is that we don't have mass deaths in those communities? So yeah, that is happening.
Cyber criminals targeting people and businesses by exploiting vulnerabilities in everyday tools that we use, like email, social media messengers, free cloud storage, as well as weak passwords. In fact, in the last couple of months, there have been two major breaches that probably affected you. There was the breach at AT&T, which exposed all of those text message logs, and it affected every AT&T customer. Also, what about the National Public Data breach for Social Security numbers? Yeah, the Social Security Administration admitted that. So that's where the people at Bunker are helping you. It's an affordable, all-in-one app protecting you against identity theft, cybercrime, and surveillance. And guess what? You can get your Bunker application for $12 annually. That's right. Why pay several different apps when you can get yourself for $12 annually protected with Bunker? Right now, you can use the code Redacted to get your first year for free. Just go to bunker.life and use the code Redacted. You can download it on the iOS App Store or on the Google Play Store, and you get, just by using that code Redacted, you get your first year for free. So our thanks to them for supporting the show.
All right, let's talk about finances, because the Department of Defense released their annual audit, and it's a doozy. It's almost comedy because they had to put a disclaimer of opinion trying to account for $824 billion that they're not quite sure where it all is. Now, this is the 7th year that they'd have to put this disclaimer of opinion. That means they're not quite sure. Like, here's our audit, but we have very low confidence that it's actually true or correct. But it's okay. Like, this is it.
Maybe off by $1 million.
More than that.
$1 trillion.
It's $1 trillion. Over $1 trillion in assets are unaccounted for. This is the 7th year in a row that the annual audit has failed to balance the books. Now, just think, what if you presented your taxes like that when April 15th came around? You told the government, I think this is what my assets are and what you can tax me on. I'll give you a clearer picture later. Deal with it. Here's a disclaimer. Like, here are my taxes. I'm paying you this, but there's a disclaimer that I'm not sure it's all valid, but deal with it. That's how it goes. Well, that's what we get as the American people. We send them our tax dollars. They funnel it into the military industrial complex, and we don't get an accounting back. $1 trillion sent, and we just don't get it. Now, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin released this press release about it. He said, well, the department has made real progress, and they are, quote, committed to achieving an unmodified, clean financial statement audit opinion by the end of 2028. So 4 years later, they'll get to us. Who knows where those assets will go? Some of them will be blown up in Ukraine. Some of them will be blown up in Gaza. We really don't know. And of course, this is undoubtedly a nightmare because they have to audit over 4,000 sites in over 160 countries. But the department spent $1 billion to do it. So $1 billion to conduct an audit that they're not sure is valid. We paid for that. They can't even get a good audit by spending $1 billion. Republican Congressman Tim Burchett says that the audit is unclear because there's all kinds of secret programs in there that they don't tell us. And in fact, today in the newsletter, we linked you to Tim Burchett on local news saying that this audit includes money for a secret UFO program, among other things. So will we really get clean books in 2028 if they're trying to not tell us what they're up to?
And after spending that $1 billion so that they can have their act cleaned up in 4 years, are they going to ever mention that missing trillion again? Or is that just they're going to come out in 4 years and go, okay, we're going to do better now. We figured it out.
Right.
We don't know where any of this missing assets are. But
Well, it's all these black ops. It's all these black ops programs,
For
right?
7 years, we haven't had clean books. This is the 7th year in a row. So if they hold themselves to the same standard as us, is most of us can sort of destroy our records after 7 years because we're pretty sure the IRS won't audit us behind that. So do they say, well, there was assets we didn't know about 7 years ago, but we're not worried about that. We're just going to figure it out by 2028. But you don't get back answers to say 2016 or what have you. We're not going to get that. We don't get that.
I would rather the Department of Defense, I would rather them say, we spent $1 trillion on secret programs. And that would make them look competent and shady. But to say, well, we lost it. Like, you're making yourselves look like idiots. How do you lose $1 trillion?
Nothing funny anymore in our chat says it's beyond belief what we do for Raytheon. Yeah, exactly. And so you're right. All of these sort of black ops programs that we're not allowed to know about, the secret reverse engineering of UFO programs. I mean, that's multi-billions of dollars that we've sent to Boeing and Northrop Grumman and Raytheon, right? For all of this reverse engineering programs, all of this stuff, all of this off the books stuff that Congress doesn't know about. And we're just footing the bill for it as American taxpayers.
It just chaps my ass because we're going through our Q3 in order to make our quarterly payments. And I'm like, we're doing this to the best of our ability. And every time I have a receipt, I put little notes on it just to make sure in case someone comes to audit me, because I don't get this pass. We have to do it right. But they don't have to, and it's money that we sent them. That's unconscionable.
Hopefully with this new DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency program under Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, that we'll get to the bottom of some of this. We'll see. Well, liberals are freaking out this morning over MSNBC and their favorite morning show, Morning Joe, which is like the worst thing in the world. So what happened? Well, liberals are freaking out. This is just a sample of it. Here's Joe from Jersey. She says, F Joe and Mika, F Morning Joe, and if F MSNBC if they keep them on their effing air. So she really is upset about Morning Joe. Why are they so upset about Morning Joe all of a sudden? Because, you have all these layoffs coming to legacy media, CNN and MSNBC in the wake of the election. There's Mika in her fall wardrobe.
What's wrong with that? I'm wearing brown today.
A little brown zip up. And there's Joe Scarborough, who I thought used to be a conservative. I mean, he was a member of Congress as a conservative, but I guess now he's at a liberal New York elite, so now he's liberal. Anyway, so what happened? Well, apparently they met with Donald Trump. Donald Trump asked them to come down to Mar-a-Lago and have a meeting. Like, hey, how do we move forward as a country if, you guys are going to be on the air every day saying lies? Like, is there a way we can find some common ground on all of this? So
Wait. Did they say he invited them? Because I listened to it and they said we had the opportunity to go. So it's not clear if they didn't invite themselves.
You can't just go to meet George. You can't just go to meet President Trump.
But they have connections if they wanted to do it and say, okay, look, we're losing our audience. They are bleeding their audience. They basically collapsed after the Trump win.
Well, maybe they pleaded with them, like, hey,
you think
have a
that
meeting.
They might have asked. The way they present it says to me that they asked. But you read into it for yourself. Let's play it.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications.
Oh, so we're going to start fresh and have a sort of, we're just going to open a dialogue. So all the past, 8 years of Russia hoax and all of that stuff, we're just going to put that on the shelf. And we're going to start a fresh dialogue. We're going to be open to President Trump. Is this sort of a movement? You've seen the Los Angeles Times doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. So they're realizing they're bleeding so many people from watching their shows. Maybe the only way that they can reclaim some of that glory is to actually, not be biased.
Well, what they say is, look, so many of Americans, almost 80 million, decided that election denialism wasn't important to them, which is like a stupid way of describing Trump voters. And they decided that the things we've been feeding them were not important. We want to figure out why and actually talk to President Trump. So it's like a backhanded compliment or something, like you didn't care about the things we told you to, so we want to understand why. You don't actually have to talk to Donald Trump at all in order to do that, but they sort of decided to do it anyway. okay.
Well, and the writing's on the wall. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but like they aren't getting viewership anymore, and CNN and all these places are laying a lot of people off, and so they're probably in fear of their money. I mean, these people make $10, $20, $30 million a year. That's a huge chunk of money to lose. And where are they going to go after this? It's not like they can start a podcast. It'll be like another Don Lemon. He started his own podcast and he's not doing anything with it. So
but no one watched.
Yeah. The writing's on the wall. They have to do this.
Well, just the other day, Glenn Greenwald put this on X that the ad week numbers showing MSNBC's viewership is terrible. Even in their prime time shows, they can't get 75,000 people to watch. Now think about the reach of independent media and 75,000 people in their prime time. Who the heck are they talking to except your miserable liberal grandma? Like literally nobody wants to watch that shit. And so they have to figure out why. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see these news channels try to do a mea culpa without saying so. At the very least, they're admitting it. We didn't get it. We need to start from fresh. We need to go to the source and figure out what we didn't get. Most of them, and the LA Times said the same thing. Jeff Bezos said the same thing at his Washington Post newspaper. How many of them will actually say, okay, this is what we didn't get, we apologize, and how many of them will just quietly try to pivot and desperately cling to their audience? Who knows?
Well, we thank you for subscribing. It's a free show to subscribe to our show. We cover the news every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're live here, so thank you guys. If you're subscribing to us on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, so thank you guys so much for that.
I'm so curious why people would watch them, knowing that they lied about the COVID vaccines, knowing that they're lying. I mean, most people don't know that they're lying about Ukraine, but like so many things there are holes in, and I asked my mom this: why do you let Rachel Maddow keep lying to you? Why does she get the privilege to keep doing that? I'm so clear. I'm so curious why some things don't hold weight, but she gets to keep spinning your narrative.
People compartmentalize things, right? People even people who watch our show, you guys are very open, and you guys are very flexible, and when we criticize President-elect Trump for certain things, you're open to that. We're not in the tank for anybody, and I think you need to be flexible, but it's uncomfortable to be flexible. And so people love to remain in their little echo chambers.
Right.
And they do not like to be pushed on anything of any of their worldviews. Right. There was somebody in the chat just a few minutes ago that said, "Hey, Clayton and Natali, why do you guys not talk about why Putin started this war in Ukraine?" And I wrote him back, Donald, and I said, Donald, it's because it's not true. Mm-hmm. This war started in 2014 when the United States pushed Russia into war. Do your research on it. We've covered it at length here, but people have a very narrow, they don't want to do the research, and they want to stick to their sort of compartmentalized echo chamber. That's why they don't want to come outside and be uncomfortable.
And I think, and I think also, why should somebody doubt that the mainstream media is lying, is telling the truth? And it's like a lot of people don't know how to go outside of that. They don't know how to do research. They don't know where to go. And that's why I feel like that's the biggest injustice to the American people, because if the media would inform them, then they would know who they need to be fighting or what they need to be fighting, but they don't. And I said, I argue that, how do they know that? I mean, it's the mainstream media. So some people have been watching it for years and thinking they're getting the truth.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're learning more about how many billions of dollars, the Harris-Walz campaign wasted on stupid crap. The Harris-Walz campaign is still soliciting donations under various types of emails. Like, for instance, they claim they're still helping to fight key Senate and House races. Do you believe that if you donate to the Kamala Harris-Walz campaign now, after they are already the losers, that they will funnel money into down ballot races? Do you believe that when you know that they are about $500 million to $500 billion, is it $1 billion? Sorry, $500 million in debt? Would you, raise your hand if you think that's a worthy cause right now to donate to, and you believe that? Now, the New York Times over the weekend went deeply into the finances of the campaign. They claim that they spent roughly $100 million per week. And now we know the full price tag of the Kamala Harris town hall event with Oprah, that was closer to $2.5 million, not $1 million like we reported last week. According to the Daily Beast, it was this. And again, we showed you Oprah saying there were over 1,000 screens here for people to video chat in. We built this set in Michigan because it's such an important swing state. It does look like an expensive production. And Philip and David rang in and said, absolutely, that's expensive. And her crew should have been paid. But many media outlets are saying she could have made a contribution and paid her crew herself because she believed in the cause so much. So are we to believe that she really believed in that, or she just took a good production opportunity for her company? And according to other reporting, now the Kamala Harris campaign burned through $1.5 billion in just 15 weeks. And here are some of the ways that the money was spent. This Las Vegas Sphere ad that went up just a few days before the election cost $900,000. Now think about that. If you're a $5 voter, you're thinking, okay, my $5 is going to get another ad to reach another voter. It's going to reach out. Maybe you think that's worth it, and maybe you don't, right? I might feel a little burned knowing that the campaign also spent $7,000 on boba tea, $40,000 at a sort of fancy ice cream spot, $40,000 on ice cream alone in August. Now, of course, the Trump campaign also did feed its staff, and those staffers work hard. Absolutely, they should get fed. They should get well taken care of, right? But it's sort of like Trump was spending on Taco Bell, which is sort of cheaper, and Kamala Harris is buying boba tea, which is like $7 a pop. It's super expensive. My daughter loves it.
Bob Pierce in our chat, in our YouTube chat, says, I'm a former Democrat, and Nancy Pelosi is texting me for $100 to $500 donations because they went over budget.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a former Democrat like that in California and getting a text from Nancy Pelosi asking you for $100 or $500 to help out a failed Harris Waltz campaign because they couldn't friggin' balance their books and wasted money, tens of thousands of dollars on stupid stuff?
Right.
That didn't, I mean, they were paying off these celebrities to come and stand there for 10 minutes, like Beyonce and Cardi B to come, like who?
But there's no evidence that any of the celebrities themselves were paid for, but the venues and the events were very expensive and fancy. We don't know, and we've searched through the documents to see if there's anything, any campaign contributions that were in the FEC, but we haven't seen it yet. But still, these are
curious.
sort of...
I would be curious to know what our taxpayers have paid, or what our tax dollars have gone towards ice cream from the Kamala and Biden combined. Like, just how much have we, the American people, spent on ice cream? Because we know that's Biden's favorite, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, they are supposed to keep campaign finances separate, even though she is the vice president. So, you know, the taxpayers were paying to at least her security detail and things like that. It's hard to keep separate when you are the incumbent, as she liked to pretend she was not. Some other things, they, you know, spent $15,000 on Uber Eats and DoorDash. Like, they couldn't just go pick it up themselves. And, you know, they just, it's clear they were not trying to economize because they didn't think they had to, because they were raising money so handily. So Oprah still says she was not paid a dime, but it was just her production company. So again, it's fair. You want everybody who was working hard to be paid. Absolutely. We want that on both sides. We don't want anybody cheated in a campaign, but a lot of vendors are saying, well, we're still waiting for, like, the florist or whatever, still waiting to be paid. And that's not right. But when you think about, if this campaign couldn't even finance run their books cleanly, how are they going to run the country cleanly? So let me know what you think about that, as whether you're a donor or not.